Hello, friends. My name is Steve, and we're here today to talk about the Thousandfold Thought, chapters 9 through 13. And as usual, we're here with Katerina and Daniel. Daniel, do you want to give us an introduction?
Hi, I'm Daniel. I have read this Second Apocalypse series a couple times, so I'm trying to help Steve when he's super clueless and just add thoughts along the way.
I'm super clueless all the time, so you have your work cut out for you.
No.
And Katerina?
Hi, I'm Katerina. This is my second time reading the Prince of Nothing trilogy, second time reading the Thousandfold Thought. So I'm more clueless than Daniel, hopefully less clueless than Steve, and trying to fill in the gaps as well with the help of these two.
Nice. Between the three of us, we'll figure this out, right? So this is my first time reading the Thousandfold Thought, and in chapter, the first few chapters of this book, it kind of felt like we weren't having answers to questions we've had throughout the whole series, and then all of a sudden, in these last few chapters, there's a couple of moments that it's just a ton of information on like 2 pages. So we go for a little bit, kind of, I don't want to say meandering because it's still interesting. It's not boring, but don't feel like we're getting a lot of answers. And then all of a sudden we get a truck full of information backs up and just dumps it on you in like 2 pages. So lots of stuff, lots to break down. And there's some stuff that I was a little bit confused about, as usual. I think we've established that. So, Danielle, what did you think about these ones? About chapter 9?
There was a lot of information in this chapter, and a lot of backstory too, kind of. When we get them talking about like the keepers of the inverse fire, a little bit more about the Ark and the Inkarai. We see a little bit of motives of more people now. We see another example of how terrible war is and what happens if you resist the god who's winning, I guess.
For me, what this chapter reminded me was actually I think it was part 4 of the darkness that comes before, when Callus and Neor and Surway are being chased in the mountain. No, not in the mountains. Somewhere they're being chased somewhere. I think they left the mountains, and they're fleeing across the Nanser Empire. So it reminded me of that, because also in this part, Neor is being hunted by the Nansor for a change. And this time he has Survey with him, who's worked on her athletic skills a little bit.
And and in a way he has Kellis with him. Kellis' dad.
That's true. One of the skin spies does shapeshift into Muangas or into Callus. We don't really know, for at least a little bit, I think.
And I think it references someone seeing them and it still being kind of like a Nanser Lord looking guy with them that came after they killed a bunch of people.
Mm.
Yeah, there's the what's the name of the general?
The Sampus encounter.
Yeah, Sampus. One of the skin spies impersonates Sampus and manages to free Neor and help him escape from the camp. And no one seems to think it's weird that a general alone is escorting a Skovendi captive through the camp for some reason.
Yeah, that kind of struck me a little bit too, because the way that he's described is kind of hard to miss. Kind of stands out. But they did. I
Yeah.
think he does tell him he has to leave before the sun comes up, and it's in darkness. So I guess, but
Yeah. I think the explanation they give is that Confus is so like unpredictable that no one's really surprised at any of his decisions, which seems to be turning against him.
Yep,
there's some
that's
comfort in
kind of what I got.
predictability. And we do get a little bit more about the skin spice too. I don't think it was this chapter, but I think it was later in one of the chapters, but that they're basically shells without souls. And then it does reference the architect or an architect of that they were able to produce skin spice with souls, but they haven't been able to reproduce them. So they're like soulless shells.
Oh, I missed that part. Where did
It
they talk
said
about?
they
I mean,
eventually get one, right?
yeah, they do have one alive, and they're
Nathanet comes and is like, "Oh, this one can do magic. It means it has a soul."
right, and they weren't
Yeah,
able to. Yeah.
that was very strange. It's like as you said, I also thought that the skin spice were just empty shells that didn't have any soul or personality. Basically, like I don't know, biological machines of sorts.
Mm.
Tools of a
But
race of lovers.
yeah, I missed the part where they say they're not able to um, reproduce them, the skin spice with the soul.
Let me find it. I have the note here somewhere. I'll find it.
It was when Nathanet was talking to uh, the mandate.
Not Sarah.
And I forgot which mandate it was that was
Oh, okay. It's on 265 on my edition, but so it says we learned of this one through our interrogations of the others. Maithanet said, his voice processing a resonance that brushed aside the alarmed prattle. It's an accident, an anomaly that, thankfully, its architects have been unable to recreate. And then later he goes on to say, it's skin spy with an ability to work sorcery. The Shura of the Thousand Temples said, grimacing with exertion, a skin spy with the soul. And the grand old sorcerer realized he had known all along, because I think they reference when they have souls, they can work magic. They can have some kind of power.
Yeah, it
when
makes
when
sense.
Tellus is
I misread it.
explaining the magic to Acamian and kind of trying to forgive his soul from damnation, or giving him a way out by saying that, how did he describe it? The few can see the cracks together since they're all kind of I knew this was going to be hard to explain.
Yeah, I figured we'd have a few of these moments this week because it's lots of
Yeah,
stuff.
there were a couple of passages that I had to read multiple times to at least partially grasp what Baker was trying to convey. The all those ruminations about souls and who has a soul and what is a soul. Is there one soul? Are there many souls? Are sorcerers, are the some souls closer to the gods than other? There was a lot of confusing stuff.
We
It,
are all
it,
God.
it kind of goes back to what Acamian, when he taught him like the inutterals, how you got to attach the meaning, right, to the words, because the words themselves don't really have that layer, and since they can attach meaning to the words, they see it differently, so they can like tell the people who see it differently. That's how they see the mark, I guess.
Yeah,
It is quite confusing, but basically he's saying that sorcerers aren't like cursed. They're the mirror they see God through is less shattered, kind of. They're a bigger pinprick to the outside. It was referencing like a Camion poking a hole in a cloth, right? And putting water on it. Sorcerers just, I don't know. It's too hard for me to explain.
I think references, we are all one soul, we are all God. You are not alone. That's on page 215 when Kellis is talking to Acamian. So yeah, that part was pretty lots of information there.
Yeah, my question would be, since Kellis is the one saying that, is it actually true? Or is that just something he made up to make Akamian feel better? Because in the moment he's talking to him, a few moments before Kellis starts talking to him, Akamian's thinking about how alone he is and how he has no one and how he's damned, and then Kellis comes like, "Oh, you're one soul with a god. All the people who've been really mean to you, actually, you're better than them because you're one of the few. You're not damned. You're like almost a saint or something close to that." What am I supposed to believe?
That's what makes it hard with these sections, because I never know what's real and what Kellis is saying to manipulate and what's really fact in this world.
Same. And how can he know? I mean, I don't think the Dunedain have any well, I don't think they believe in God. Or do they? Or if anything, they're trying to insulate themselves from any external influence.
I feel so much better that you guys aren't just know exactly what all that meant, because I read it I don't know how many times, and I was like, I hope they know what's going on, because this is confusing.
The Dunyan definitely, they believe in the Logos, which means that there is no like truth to history or past. It's only the here and now, and they can dominate it however they want to try to grasp the Logos, which is like the perfect self-moving soul. And Kellis is their newest generation, or maybe I'm sure there's younger than him, but I guess the perfect self-moving soul has no room for empathy, as we've seen with Lilith in the first book, right? And just forever afterwards. But I haven't really seen Kellis lie.
He stretched the truth, I guess.
Truth is funny, because it can be said multiple, you can take multiple meanings from what really vague truths, I guess. So we'll see, I guess, if what Kellis is saying is true. But
yeah, and I liked how it came in the text. It says metaphysics. It's almost like preparing you for, okay, get ready, because this is about to get heavy.
We got to a part where Kellis was thinking to himself and giving a speech to some people, and he talked about how the past does determine things, and he does walk on conditioned ground, which was kind of weird. That's the exact opposite of Dunyan belief.
I kind of see it as a lot of what he says is just what people want to hear or what they need to hear. Yeah, they kind of like to motivate them or to get them to do what he wants them to do. Kind of way it.
And there's a part in it where he's like discussing all of the people, and you're like, it's like Proyas, and he talks about Proyas, and then in italics, it's just his thoughts about how he dominated him, and he just goes through all the people and says their faults and says how he saved them, and he's like, yeah, this is how I control you. And that's just what he's thinking. But he also is thinking that he walks on conditioned ground for some reason, which usually the Dunyan are the ground. They condition the ground.
I kind of took it as him realizing that there are larger schemes in play that he hadn't really considered up until that moment. Whose schemes those are, I don't think is necessarily clear at this moment, but I think you might guess. Or not.
Or not, I don't know.
But sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, there was just going back to the discussion about souls. There was one section in chapter 9 when Nayor is thinking about madness and what it actually means in this world to be insane. And I think he gives this explanation that somehow it, like, being insane means, or like that every person is somehow connected to the outside, but people who are broken are not able to contain the outside, so it spills into like our world, and that's how you go insane. And you can either be possessed by the gods, so you become a prophet, or by the demons, so you become Nayor, I guess.
Yeah, I think he talks about how kind of he thinks he's kind of figured Kellis out on 193. Says the Dunyan, nor realized, acted as though there were no holes in the sorcerer's parchment map, no beads to signify souls, no water to mark the outside. He assumed a world where the branching sections of one man could become the roots of another, and this elementary assumption had conquered the act of thousands. He had conquered the holy war. This insight sent Noir reeling, for it suddenly seemed that he rode through two different worlds, one open where the roots of men anchored them to something beyond, and another where the self-named roots were entirely contained. What would it mean to be mad in such a closed world? But such a world could not be, ingrown and infinite, cold and soulless. There had to be more.
That's very confusing. So, like, on one hand, you have Kellis who's saying that everyone is part of this one soul. And then you have Nayor saying that the Dunyan don't think of anyone as having a soul. It seems like there are like two contradictory propositions given here. Which one is true? Or can they both be true at the same time?
I kind of took it as well. I don't know if I'm on the right track or not, but seeing that there's because Nora talks about there being like two worlds or two outlooks. I wondered if that was because one is because of the arc. I forget what the reference was. Well, I'm sure we'll talk more about that later. But I forget what they call it. The arc that is in the ground.
It's the
Golgotha
arc.
The arc
Yeah.
of the spy
The
of the
golden
skies.
womb.
Yeah. So I wondered if they were if the skin spies were somehow changing his way of thinking or something. I don't know. I don't have any answers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everyone seems to agree that the skin spies don't have any souls.
Well, some of them do.
Well, except for that one.
Yeah, it was weird how it describes Nair feeling like there was an extra layer of muscles between his muscles and his bones that he couldn't really feel, but he just could also feel. And I think he said when it thought he was, or something like that. So he feels like he's been taken over sort of by a demon. Or an angel. Or he is the demon, or he is an angel. He just doesn't feel like he is himself anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe, but at the same time, I did feel like this was one of the moments where Nayor seemed most self-aware. Like he seemed to be able to reflect on his past with the Dunye and how, like, meeting Moangus and realizing that all these like rules that have bound him are true are arbitrary, and how he like tortured himself because of this realization, and he even seems to show some regret for how he treated Turway, which I thought was very surprising. That's not a very mannish thing to do. It's not very manly.
It's very weepery.
No. One of those skin spies even told him 2 centuries ago, I was Sylvendi, I know your ways. Which means at least one of the skin spies was around for hundreds of years. And Nair liked that they all fought like Sylvendi on horseback. And Serway put herself in front of the thousands of arrows, I guess. Whatever that would have been.
Save him. Yeah, they save him from the volley of arrows.
Yeah, they sacrificed her way again. Like, first time for Kellis, this time for New York. It seems to be a pattern.
But any one of them can just turn into Surway again, so it's kind of like, it's okay.
Yeah, Sompus finally gets made Exalt General, and then he makes him go out and try to catch Nair, and it just all went bad for him. He's a short-lived Exalt General. Maybe Sompus will still be around. Who knows? It said he only thought about his burning family once, though, because Confus is going to burn his whole family into non-existence now.
Which did not seem like a wise decision by Confus, because ultimately it did lead Sompus to want to betray him, because he realized that, like, regardless what he does, his family is going to get burned. So it's better alternative for him to betray Confus and try to make peace with Kellis. That was not very strategic of Confus, and I guess it's kind of showing that being an emperor has gotten into his head a little bit. He's losing his ability to empathize. Well, maybe empathize not the right word. I don't think he's ever been able to empathize, but sort of at least predict how people are going to react to things like the threats, like burning their whole family alive.
People usually frown upon that kind of thing, but so I guess since we're on the topic of what happened to Somphis and that Surway, the skin spy Surway, from the way I understand it, is she saw him fight and she wanted to couple with him, I guess. So when the Esmenet skin spy comes in and tries to seduce Callus, they have a discussion about kind of what the skin spies are, what their motives are, and what did you guys think of that? Because I kind of saw it as they're about pleasure and desire, and that's how they manipulate. That's how they that's their powers, that they can do that. I guess there's a lot of information there.
Well, first of all, I think it was so the Esmenet that was trying to seduce Callus was the real Esmenet, all but possessed. The Esmenet that was
right?
The Esmenet that was trying to seduce Akamian was a skin spy.
Oh, okay.
But I think I would say it's not that. I don't think it's necessarily where they get their power from. It's how the Inquisitor are able to control them, because they know that the skin spies are built in a way where like violence and like sex makes them agitated or aroused, or whatever word you want to use. So I get that's how they get rewarded by the architect or by whatever handler they have, I think.
Yeah, basically. Violence and sexual arousal are crossed in their brain and intertwined somehow. Same with the strength. There's a lot of like references to them, like they call themselves a race of lovers a lot, and all their tools like just want to kill everybody so they can eventually have sex with their dead bodies. Pretty much is what Shrink just love to do. It's like the murdering just gets them there. It's the foreplay for the horrible, I don't know, just disregard for humans, which are the old toys of the Inquisitor a long time ago. And so all the tools that they use, like use pleasure as a weapon and as like a driving force, the same way Kellis like uses words in order to do everything he wants. So that makes sense. Kellis like, uses words as his tool, whereas everything the Inquisitor they built upon like ecstasy and rapture.
I was kind of that whole section kind of reminded me of a movie where the bad guy has this big monologue about how his big plan, what the big plan was the whole time before he kills the hero, kind of thing. Kind of what it reminded me of. He just all of a sudden like, let me tell you all about me. He just.
It is quite a bit of exposition. I agree.
But I did enjoy getting answers though. So.
Yeah, I mean, some of those things they kind of were hinted at or even mentioned in the previous chapters or even the previous books, but they were since they're mostly like scattered, like one bit here, one bit there. I don't think you might not necessarily be able to put them one together. So I guess yeah, like it's you might call it info dumping, but we did get to learn a little bit more about who the Inquirer are and their modus operandi.
No, I enjoyed it. I thought it was. I was happy to finally find out more about them. I just thought it was kind of a
So
weird way to
to
do it.
now you understand what the Inquirer are.
No, but a little bit more information. Yeah.
You guys know how big a cubit is?
No what?
There was a talk of cubits when they were talking about how big the ark was. And
Qubits.
yeah, basically they said that the ark is like almost 1 mile long. It's a 1 mile long golden thing that's 2/3 underground somehow. Because when it landed, it just blasted through the earth.
The part
So
that was surprising for me, which I forgot about, is the fact that at some point the ark was apparently alive, like an organic thing.
Oh, it was like a womb. I think they called it. It's almost like a womb. You get cared
Yeah,
for.
they called it the dead womb, or Coyote. I think Coyote did.
yeah,
I
so there's
can't really. I mean, I can't really imagine the process of like having a live ship that somehow breeds its inhabitants. I don't know. It's a weird imagery that I'm not really.
and we learned previously that the Incarai, when they came through the ark, they were like fleeing from damnation and the outside. So they believe in whatever the outside is.
But they want to close it
Yeah, because their souls are super damned. So they need it shut.
because
Otherwise,
they're the lovers.
yeah, they were too much a race of lovers. But what did it say? It said the Incarai like might have even been like children of the ship, or maybe even slaves of the ship. So it's real vague, but there's a lot of talk of this golden ark, and for some reason, Seswatha had to fool the old king into going in there.
That is suspicious. I mean, first of all, those ship sequences are very scary with all those bones lying around. And second of all, I just assumed Seswatha was a good guy.
True.
But let's assume he has good motivation for why he's lying to now Coyote.
We'll see. I don't know. Do we? I'm afraid. Almost afraid. You guys are pretty good about not spoiling things. I shouldn't ask. I was gonna see if we get answers to all this stuff somewhere, sometime. Not when, but can you? Or are there still things up in the air? Don't answer that. I shouldn't ask. I shouldn't ask. Shouldn't ask. So, for those of you who listen or watch, a couple weeks ago I mentioned that I kind of had like a semi spoiler that I list. What I had heard was about the craft, about the ship or the arc. So anyone who's been listening who was curious what that was, we talked about it after we stopped recording, but that's what that item was, which wasn't much of a spoiler. But
No, you know it's there, and it's really deep and underground and horrible, and shiny golden. It's sci-fi, but described through like a complete fantasy lens, if that makes sense. That's why it seems weird when you read it, because it's like some people in a fantasy world coming across something real crazy when they don't even have like cars or any like ability to fathom that kind of stuff.
I mean, I do remember the first time I read these books. Like, it took me a while to realize that they were aliens. It's just, it didn't click for a while. And I was like, whoa. I guess this is a sci-fi.
I think
Well,
it's not usually what we expect, you know. So it would without I would have been confused too, for sure.
yeah. And also the fact that, I mean, you would just assume that if there's a race or civilization that has the technology to build a spacecraft and travel across the universe, and somehow they end up, like, even if they end up crashing in this planet that doesn't seem very technologically like, there's not really much technology in this world, on this planet. Like, you would think they will just take over and completely, like, immediately, but that's not what happened. Like, they've been at war with the inhabitants of Erwa for thousands of years, and they're still not succeeded. Like, in fact, it seems they're losing. So I just find that peculiar.
I remember you bringing up in one of the previous discussions how they said this wasn't the first planet they had crashed on. Remember that? Or the first planet they had came to. I don't know if it said crashed on.
I mean, I assume it can only crash once.
But I think they've been fleeing the outside, whatever that is, for a while. Maybe it's just a new beast that nobody knows what it is. But they had fled to other planets before. So maybe they've just been fleeing for so long they were just weak when they got here, and a bunch of people who had just learned how to hammer together iron into a sharp edge beat them up. Who knows?
Or was that the cause of the first apocalypse? The ship?
No, the ship came a long time before the apocalypse. Before the first one.
Oh yeah, because there's Well, they have to have something to do with it, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, we're sort of. You can sort. I think it was already mentioned. So I don't think this is a spoiler. The first apocalypse was brought about by human sorcerers rediscovering the ship.
Some kind of sorcerer's magic on the ship, or a powerful creature on the ship. Some way to reincarnate Mogfaro, the walking whirlwind.
To whom Kellis seems to be have some connection with. Like, he talks to him. He says that he talks to the No God in his dreams, I think, if I remember correctly. Well, he says that to Orang, to the architect, at in the villa when he possesses Esmanet. They have a conversation about the non-god, and Kellis is like, "Oh, do you know he talks to me? He's disappointed with you." I find it quite I mean, if that's true, and again, I don't know if that's true, but if it is, I find it very disturbing that Kellis just casually conversing with the no god.
It's true. His thoughts were pretty strange during that speech, I thought. And then he says, what, you must dwell in front of the door of your father? And he's talking about how they have to go to Shimei, and he's their reward if they can dwell in front of the door of their father. But at the same time, he's got to go to the last tree of Erdia, I think it was called.
I think he says, every brother is a son, and every son must visit my father's house.
Yeah, and he says, soon I will darken your door.
Yeah.
That's ominous. That's real ominous to say about your dad. Soon I'll brighten your day, Dad. Soon I'll darken your door.
Well, I mean, the official version still goes that he's there to assassinate him.
Yep, but then there's lots of people who think he's the heir, not the assassin. His dad's old and about to die, so someone needs to take over. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, at least the console has finally realized that Kellis is a threat and should not be taken lightly. Even though they still seem more preoccupied with getting rid of Moangus.
They just want to understand the Dunyan. They kind of know it's a threat now, but it's this strange new puzzle piece on the Benjuka board, and they just don't. They need to figure out how it works, because they've been playing the game for thousands of years now. And now all their skin spies are all outed. They're seeming to be losing all their grips, so some piece got introduced to the board that changed all the rules.
And there was a mention of the skin spies that their faces looked like this Crumpix, that their faces had the shape.
Yeah, he had it tied in leather, and all of the strings pulled out, and it kind of looked like a mockery of the circumfix. So it's kind of in a circle, and then it was gross on the inside.
Yeah, speaking of skin spies, did you... Well, first of all, we see Maithanet again after a pretty long time. I think... Did we make guesses about as to where he was going when he was leaving Simna? I feel like we might have. Maybe not. I don't know.
I think we rounded on no idea.
But well, then it's quite surprising that the Holy Schreier, of all the places he could go, he would end up in the Mandate's capital. Like, was he there just to uncover Simus, the skin spy sorcerer, or is there anything more to this?
Yep.
I have no idea.
It's strange that he would be there.
And also, like, did anyone guess that Simus was a skin spy? No.
I usually don't know until it says the thing called whatever, the thing called what was the first skin spire, the one that I always complain about. I forgot his name. Zarsulus.
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, there is like, well, I mean, I'm only bringing it up because there is, if you reread the books, there is this one. I think it's in Darkness, probably. Maybe the Warrior Prophet. I don't remember. But there's like one passage where Nitsera, the main like mandate sorcerer, where he's complaining that he's like, because he's old, that like he can't see very well, and he has to have other people read his books for him, and he's jealous of Simus because Simus for some reason seems to have perfect eyesight and doesn't need anyone to read his books to him. So it's, I mean, you couldn't really like figure out from that he's a skin spy, but it's just like a tiny detail that you'll uncover when you know that he is that.
Jeez. How did he keep track of all this stuff?
I don't know. I mean, there are just some. I mean, there are some things, like some details I remember, and there are some big pieces of the story that I completely forget, even if I'd like to remember them. So
There was after Kellis and Esmenet are visited by the skin spy, and Esmenet's trying to convince Kellis that she really does love him. There's a passage here on 254 in my version, but if what men call truth were ever hostage of their desires, how could they fail to make slaves of their women, to hide them like a hoarded guild, to feast on them like melons, to discard them like rinds? Just kind of how they view women in this world.
I mean, that whole passage or that whole section was pretty hard to read. Like reading about Esmenet being possessed and how it's not just that someone possessed her, but also that like they made her feel in some things that felt real to her, even if she was compelled to feel them. It's just like an extra level of manipulation or oppression, or like some kind of control. It was just very nasty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, their power seems to be able to have a lot of control, but more briefly, seemed like even Kellis was seduced almost, if that makes sense, when Esmenet came to talk to him as not Esmenet, but really Esmenet. And then he had to like it was another one of those moments where he feels a feeling he's never felt before. It's like, wait, what is this feeling? And then he like jumped away and shut it all down and tried to remember that he needed to control the consult. That conversation was a really important conversation to win, because maybe there's other battles that are being fought right now.
And that was a distraction too, right? Because during that, when Kellis is talking with the skin spy, doesn't he realize that he's distracting him so they can kill the Camion, and he saves the Camion?
Yeah.
There's some parts there's been a couple of instances. I'm not sure if it's been like this before, but especially in these last few chapters. Before, there's been a couple of combat times that someone's fighting, and it's hard to tell who is fighting who, because they just say like he stabbed him in the face, or so because when the skin spy when skin spy is in a Kamion's room on his bed, and he thinks that it's Esmenet, but Kellis comes in and kills it. I wasn't sure who was the person stabbing the skins. I assumed it wasn't a Kamian, but it's hard to tell who's stabbing who
It
or
was
who's doing
some
what.
general that died, I think. Some general stabbed him, and then the skin spy still killed the guy before he died.
Oh, I was way off.
That was the one thing that Kellis didn't expect to happen. That was an unexpected occurrence. He knew everything else that was going to happen, he said.
But he still put the general in a Kamian's room, so he knew that they were coming for a Kamian. I think that's what I understood. Was like why otherwise why would the general why would he be there instead of a Kamian?
Yeah, and he also, for some reason, I guess thinks like the Mandate are going to be sailing up the coast towards him for some reason, right? You guys see that? Read that? Kellis thinks that some Mandate ships were going to be sailing for Shimei, and he really needs to conquer Shimei before the Mandate ships get there for some reason.
Yeah. Well, he gets a message from Mwengas that the Mandate is coming, and I guess we can deduce that they're coming with Maithanet, since the last time we saw the Mandate, Maithanet was there as well.
And something snapped within Kamian in these chapters. Now he's like the only one that's not enamored with Kellis that's around still. And Kellis is taking note. Why is he staring at me? Still staring at me.
Does Kellis annoy either one of you sometimes that he's, I don't know, he's like, I don't know, like he, I want to see him fail, or I want to see him.
I want to see him punched in the face.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I like the characters. Sometimes I think he's too powerful. He's like a Superman. It's
There's thousands of him in one city somewhere. There's a more powerful him sitting behind an ivory tower somewhere, or no, beneath a tree, somewhere by a tree.
He needs a kryptonite.
I do enjoy reading about Kellis, but at the same time, I get so angry when he's manipulating people, especially the people I care about. And I do also want to see him fail, but he's been pretty successful so far, so we'll see how things turn out.
We still don't know what the Thousandfold Thought is either. He alluded to it once more, but...
Is that when he talks about he took the shortest path? And then I think he mentioned something very vague about it. But...
yeah. There's still a little bit more to read. One more week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has to be done next week. Feels like it's all like building up.
Yeah. Unless you want to do another. Well, the audiobook says Shaima, so I'm very confused about the pronunciation.
Shaima.
Shaima sounds shiny, and it's apparently a porcelain white city, so maybe.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I don't know. Well, I was gonna say, one last episode for this book, unless you want to do another episode just for the appendices.
Yeah, I was looking at that because I was looking and see how much we have left. That's how much we have left for those of you watching, and but half of that is the appendix. because there's only another 100 pages or so in the actual book, and then it goes to the glossary. So there's a lot in there. We could. I mean, there's only a couple of pages. I don't know. It's a lot.
It's a big one. There's some stuff in there that's cool.
Good.
Maybe you can read them, Steve, and then ask us about the things you're unclear about.
I see what you're doing there, Katerina. Why don't you read it and tell us what you have questions about? Very, very smooth. Very smooth. I'm sure I'll have a lot of that.
Anyway, what did you think of Zyneema's dying? It felt very sudden to me. Like he wasn't doing well mentally, but he didn't seem to be sick the last time we saw him, I think. So it did come as a little bit of a surprise that he was now on his deathbed.
Yeah, I kind of just thought he was things have caught up to him, and yeah, but I have a question may be related, may or may not be related. So about another blind person. But what did you think, Daniel? Were you surprised?
Did you care?
It happened suddenly, and it was, I think, a good thing. He was miserable. He was a miserable drunk. And he was a miserable blind and a miserable drunk. So he's just doubly miserable. And that's kind of what snapped Acamian, because Acamian's like telling Kellis what you couldn't save Zin, and then he just stopped listening to him after that. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I think for Kellis not saving him or not helping him in some way, I kind of took it as that's something that he wanted Acamian to go through to pull his strings somehow. Because everything Kellis does is for a reason, right? Does or doesn't do is for a reason.
I think that's safe to. I mean, I agree with you. I guess it does seem suspicious, considering how much hold he has over other people. That, like, if he just talked to Zyneema's, I'm sure that it would have helped. So why didn't he? So it must have been intentional. But then it seemed to piss Acamian off and trigger him. So now he doesn't, like, he seems to have at least lost some of his faith that he previously had in Kellis. So why would Kellis do that? I don't know.
So Daniel's trying to, yeah.
Maybe we'll talk about it next week.
There was a blind man that whispers something in Kellis's ear that makes Kellis change. He kind of changes his approach a little bit. I wondered, was that blind man? Because he kills him right after, the blind man. So I wonder, was that a skin spy that was manipulating Kellis?
In italics, when Kellis is thinking, when he's given the final speech, and he's saying "We are war" to everybody, trying to get them all riled up, he thinks what that guy said, and the guy said, "Your father awaits you. There's but one tree in," what was it called?
Yurdia? Somewhere near Shima or Shime.
Yurdia, I think. So that's what he whispered. So apparently his father awaits him, and that's why he's thinking that he will darken his door soon.
And he also tells him about the mandate coming, right? I think so.
I don't remember if
Let me
that
see
came
if
up or
I-
not.
I think that's what freaks Kellis out.
That's what he says out loud, not what he whispers. Because he draws Kellis's attention over to like kneel next to him. Don't remember what he says to get him over there exactly. No, he whispered that his father awaits him.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think he mentioned the mandate, but I might be wrong. But anyway, I think since he's somehow connected to Wangus and he's also blind, I guess it's safe to assume that he is a Kasharam.
I would guess probably not, but I don't know. He's definitely associated with them, but I assume that in order to like, they said they were like killing all blind people, so in order to make it that far, he couldn't have the mark. Otherwise, someone would have seen him. Who knows who?
But the Kasharam don't have the mark,
Oh,
do they?
that's right. You're correct. Forgot.
Yeah, I was trying to find it, but I couldn't. I just found a couple of quotes in italics, but I couldn't find it. I didn't realize that was what the blind man told him.
There's a part where Kellis, when he's explaining the way magic words work, he like explains why this souk like came into existence and why it's kind of like why they blind themselves so that they can have more meaning because they don't have like the sight of the object to detract from the meaning. They live only in the world of meaning. They're just an eyeless group of pale white cave dwelling mages or something. It describes where they live actually, and I forgot what they called it. Basically, like a cancerous mark in China that they need to go and destroy. That's the part that they need to destroy the most. One part they're gonna go in and try to save first, the old part. Who knows how it's all gonna work?
Well, the Scarlet Spires seem to be freaking out. That's for sure.
And I did like that when they were approaching Shema or whatever, that they were burning the trees so they wouldn't be able to make siege weapons out of the trees. I thought that was pretty neat. But didn't they bring some with them at the end of chapter 13? I think they were assembling them, the ones that they brought to get ready. So this is a pretty good chapter to finish on because we're right at the cusp of whatever's about to happen.
Yeah, we ended up on a cliffhanger.
And Kellis isn't going to lead him into the war, so who knows what he's planning.
Yeah, I don't know that
he's planning.
I think Kellis is looking after Kellis, and he has his own goals and doesn't care about what happens to the rest of them. Maybe that's a diversion for what he wants to do.
It seemed to me like he wanted the Holy War to succeed, even though he's not going to there with them because he has more important business. It seemed like he was anxious about them prevailing against the Kianim. But he
That's
certainly
super.
has other plans than just conquering Shima.
Yeah, that's his cool new weapon, and he wants to keep it. He tempered it for a long time through the desert and through famine and through blood and worse.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even think they'd make it. So I have no idea what's going to happen.
They're not there yet.
Well, they're at the gates, right? I mean, they're pretty close. Yeah, they're not inside, but
What did it say? They lost their longest spear. They had like the outriders that were kind of going and seizing all the places first, and then they got trapped and all killed. Said like 20 of them survived, I think, in the end.
Well, those are related to Saban, so good riddance.
I know we couldn't go one week without your favorite character, Saban.
Saban forever. Yeah.
He is out of the way. Phyllis has got most of his nuisances out of as far out of the way as you can.
Seems like things have worked out pretty well for him. Kind of like this is where he planned it. He planned that it would be, and here we are.
Yeah, he managed to get Conphis and Naor away, which were probably the only two people that would be able to resist him or resist his influence. Everyone seems to be believe that he's the prophet. They're willing to die for him. He has found he's found a vessel for his Dunyan sons. Which is a horrible thing to think about as Minute.
A vessel?
Yeah, there's one part where he's literally like he's thinking about like how difficult it is for Esmenet because she's a woman, and then he's like, well, here I am, picking her because she would make a great boom.
Yeah, I don't think he sees people as people though, Kellis. He's means to end tools, right? Means to an end.
Even Krampus has some reflection on being violated in this chapter. He's thinking about seed across his back and how bad he wants to kill Nair now. And then Nair escapes.
Yeah, but at the same time, I appreciate how he's able to interpret what happened in a way that makes him seem unconquerable. Like I think he says something along the lines of, "Well, I am one of the gods, so is this how the gods test me?"
He actually says Nair's a god in the end too. He's like, "You're a god too. I see it now."
Kindred souls, yeah.
So I was just sleeping with another god, I guess. It's less of a violation. It's tolerable. He still was going to kill him, though, I think.
I hope so.
Oh, he escaped. Nair's gone now. Wind.
I don't know. I hope.
But Confus was mad.
Well, he's ruining his plans because he's the only one who knows that the Nansor haven't left, or have left Jokta and are marching on Chima.
Yep, we found out that secret has lasted through SNet's talks with the council. I forgot is it Wathjurl, the guy that's there, that's being influenced right now to report back to Kellis? And
Forget his name.
Is what is he what do you mean he's spying on Esmanet? Or
no, the
what?
guy that Kellis left with Nair to be like so he could talk to him in his dreams, is telling it he's being like pulled by the cants of compulsion to tell Kellis that everything's going fine, or to tell
Okay, right.
whoever the middleman is. So Esmenet still thinks everything's going fine because one of the schoolmen is being compelled to say everything's fine currently. That's supposed to be their like for sure link. And I think Esmenet at one point like got word that Nair is still there, and they're all being tight-lipped about it because he's doing horrible things to Confis, they think, maybe. Just because he's being like a horrible dictator.
I mean, it's kind of what he tried to do.
He was supposed to kill him. That's supposed to be the word coming back, that Confis is somehow dead.
True. But it did not work out in the end.
Yeah. So anything else you guys can think of?
Akamian lived through the assassination attempt, so I guess he's got to keep teaching Kellis, who he used the word hate when he was thinking about him, which was weird. Well, he also uses the word love right next to it, because he just loves him and he hates that he took Esmenet away. So he's going through some stuff, kind of like Nair was going through some stuff. What did Nair say at one point? He said, "He murdered my father with words, consumed my heart with revelation. He set me free." So he's saying, like, he murdered my father, but he set me free. Even, like, at the same time, like, saying why they're so evil and why he wants to kill them, because they set him free.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the dilemma or conflict within Yor that he's been battling with the whole time. The fact that he is kind of free of the ways of the Skilvendi, but it's in some ways he still is Skilvendi. He can't really detach himself from the culture completely, and it's driving him insane, as he himself has admitted. So it's very contemplative in this chapter.
The metaphysics stuff, I think I'm gonna have to read a few more times over. That stuff is pretty heavy. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this is not my first time reading this book, and I reread those passages a couple of times, and I'm still confused. So, don't be too hard on yourself.
Oh no, I'm used to being confused, so okay.
Philosophers have been debating like what here really is for thousands of years. Like, here to you is not here to me. How can people be here together? Which is a lot of semantics, and I think Akamian even yells at him. He's like, "That's all semantics." And maybe it is. Maybe it's not. Does God really exist in this world?
The more I read, the more confused I am about that. That I think I mentioned earlier. When I first read these books, I just assumed it was all lies. Because everyone seems to believe different things. The gods don't really show up or don't seem to be really affecting what's happening on the ground. But like the more you read about it, the more unclear that becomes. And the people of the world definitely seems to believe that gods are real.
Mhm.
Even the more cynical one, like even a common believes he is damned. Even people like Xerius or Conphus, they do seem to believe that the gods exist.
What about your favorite person? Saban care? Saban care.
Saban cares about Saban.
Saban believes in the gods when it's convenient for him.
That's true.
He's
And that
still in
is
his
true that
castle.
most of the people in this story do, in some sense, believe in a god. It seems like some of them believe in many gods. Some of them believe in a dead god.
No god.
Some of them believe in the no god. Some of them are non-men. There's a lot going on.
I would, if I didn't know that there was another series, I would be a little bit worried about all this being wrapped up in 100 pages. So there's a lot. If there was just this trilogy, then I'm assuming a lot of this will carry over to the other series.
I'm curious how you're going to think this is as a wrap-up.
I don't know that it'll be
Let's
much
see.
of a wrap up. I don't know. It's a lot to. Um, I guess if we didn't have the second series, would you be satisfied with this trilogy? If this is all we had, these three
That's,
books.
that's, a, that's a next week question when it's over. When
All right,
there's
that's
no
fair.
spoilers to happen. That's
All right.
when that answer comes.
All right.
Yeah, we'll answer next week. But I do have an answer.
Okay.
I'm definitely excited to read these last few chapters. It's been a while since I've read them. There's a lot of revelation in these chapters that I can't discuss. But we'll talk about way, way, way later. And it's I can't say anything. It kind of has to do with like how skin spies imitate humans and what are imitations. I don't know. It'll all come up.
Even I'm confused now.
Okay.
There's definitely a part where the Inkarai, when they're talking about strength and they're talking about skin spies, they're saying like it was made in their image. That's why they're all like also races of lovers. That's why ecstasy is like murder. Murder and ecstasy are like intertwined to them because they're made in the image of the Inkarai or the what did you call them at the beginning? What does the Synthes like to be called sometimes? The architect.
Well, I'm looking forward to next week then, because lots to talk about. Is this the book that everyone says blows their mind, or is that one of the books in the second series?
In what way? Darkness? Writing
No,
prose?
in a surprising way. I think it's the fourth book in the second series that everyone talks about. Just like
We'll see if
really
there's
surprises them.
some surprises here. If I had to guess, I would say that there's been a lot of surprises already, and there will probably be a couple more surprises here. But definitely the last few hundred pages of the second apocalypse is, there's some surprises.
And
We'll get
Katerina,
there.
have you finished your read of the second series? Or are you in the white? What is it called? The white something?
I think she
I
paused for
have
catching up too fast.
Yeah.
I have finished the White Lag Warrior, but I think I'm stopping there for now, and I'll just wait for us to catch up together. It's too much. I mean, I have barely enough time to keep up with this read along. Cramming another Bakker book in between, it's just proved close to impossible. And I find myself not enjoying it as much because there was just a lot of other things I had to read as well. So I think I'll just read it slowly with you guys, and at least Daniel will get some pleasure of me guessing at things that are going to turn out to be completely untrue.
That'll be fun. I'd say the first book of the second series is a really big surprise as far as the writing style. It has a different feel. Bakker changes tone a little bit in it.
I feel like in general, I mean, I've read 2 of the 4 books, but I did feel like the tone changes, or just the way the story is told changes from the first trilogy.
It's still dark. Don't get it wrong. There's still a lot of darkness in there, but I can't even describe what it is that changes. Maybe when we get there, we'll talk about it. They say it's a lot more Tolkien-esque and less like Dune. Definitely, right now we're following the Holy War, and they're marching to Shima, and they'll either get there or they won't.
There are definitely more trees in the second series, and fewer deserts than in this one, which is not actually something that I'm too happy about.
And kind of homages to classic fantasy, sort of.
Is there a Tom Bombadil singing in the second series?
In the most grim, dark way, I would say yes. In the most grim, dark way. I'll even tell you who it is when we get there.
Sort of, maybe. I could see that connection. There are definitely some references to the Lord of the Rings that are very obvious. Even if I read Lord of the Rings when I was 9, and I haven't reread it since, and I still picked up on those. I mean, you don't even need to read the books. Just if you've seen the movies, I think it becomes quite clear very early on.
They're very different too, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's still
there's
Bakker.
no hope later in these books. There was hope in Lord of the Rings. It's a book full of hope. So imagine just a hopeless Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed the Judging Eye more than I enjoyed the Fellowship, but I did read the Fellowship about 15 years ago, maybe more. So that might not be a fair comparison.
Been a little while. Cool. So looking forward to next week. Just about 100 chapters left, and then I'll bring some questions for both of you for the appendix.
Okay. I'm looking forward to them.
Yeah, it'll be good.
Yeah. I'll try to be more prepared. I was much less prepared than I wanted to be this week.
What's with you two and being unprepared this week? What's going on?
I'm walking chaos. That's what it is.
No, it's okay.
I have no good excuse either.
I'll let you slide this time, I guess.
It just ended up being a lot denser than I thought. There was a lot. When you talk about metaphysics, it just gets deep. I'd assume if we wanted, we could go back and go over that chapter of fear and souls, and we could probably talk for an hour just about that in the Bible and the Quran and the yin and the yang, reincarnation.
I might need to do some reading before we do that, like some additional reading.
That would be a fun conversation to have.
Or you would call Moses Jesus on accident.
Yeah. Or a mule or horse.
Yeah.
But I at least people are listening, so
yeah,
someone's out there. Yes, that's okay. But everyone's been pretty good about it. But
they have. It's been fun hearing people's thoughts.
Yeah.
Frank's comments were cool.
Yeah, we have a few commenters every week, and with the podcast, it's a little bit different because there's no comment section, so it's sometimes it feels like you're yelling into the void. But Reddit's been really, the Bakker Reddit's been really good, been really supportive, and we have some people who watch on YouTube every week too, so that's nice. We have a little group, and there are a couple of people reading with us that have told me, so it's pretty neat.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to everyone who's stuck with us so far. It's that's remarkable that you're willing to bear me rambling about these things. I do appreciate that.
I think it's fun to have someone to bounce ideas off of and kind of discuss with. So it's pretty neat.
I'm sure most of them want to scream at us sometimes and correct us or add a joke, but they can't.
Yeah. Oh, they can check the forums and let us know if they want to join us. But cool. So Daniel, if someone doesn't want to get in touch with you, where's the best place to do that?
In the YouTube comments of these videos, I guess, or on the Page Chewing forums, which now has a chat and snow everywhere.
Yeah, it's snowing. Yeah. And Katerina, where's the best place to find you?
You can also find me on the Page Chewing forum, and I'm also on Instagram at The Errand. I will most certainly reply to your messages within the span of a few months. Because I'm so good, so up to speed to everything.
It's a lot to keep track of. So, and we have
but I do appreciate anyone listening and commenting, or even not commenting.
Yeah. Cool, everybody. Well, we will see everyone next week for the end of the Thousandfold Thought. See what kind of fun questions and kind of fun conversations we could get into next week. So cool, everybody. We'll see you by this time next week. We'll be done with this one and spoil the whole first trilogy. It's exciting. So cool. Thanks, everybody.